Well, hello everyone, how are you doing this fine day? Hope you're enjoying your week. Welcome to another survival challenge. Isn't it crazy that I am finally doing this video? I know a lot of you guys might be saying, wait, haven't you done this? No, it surprised me too. I had no idea that I'd never covered this before. I've pitted 3 Ultramarines against 20 Helldivers. I've had debates on the stream multiple times with the Imperium against Super Earth, but I've never actually made an official video on it. It's crazy that it's taking me this long to actually talk about this. I had no idea, but hey, fuck it. We're doing it now because it is long overdue, and this is going to be a big one. So let's not waste your time and let's get started. First things first, we have some new shit to cover about Super Earth, and more so than just some new shit to cover, there's actually quite a bit of information that I have acquired that I did not have acquired previously, and it has greatly influenced my opinion on exactly how numerous I believe Super Earth is, because my god, were they a lot bigger than I thought they were. While it is true that I've played Helldivers 1 and I played it before Helldivers 2 came out, I never really got that into it. I think total across all of my gameplay in Helldivers 1, I may have had like 15 hours, 20 maybe. Not a lot, enough to basically get a vibe of it. It was a free PSN game like years and years ago, and I tried it out for a little while, but I eventually moved on. It wasn't until Helldivers 2 that I actually started playing the game more seriously. So a lot of the information on Helldivers 1 was me just kind of looking things up and trying to understand it. One thing that I did not realize until very, very recently, which, you know, shame on me, I get it, is this. Look at these fucking numbers. So in the original Galactic War, there is a possible pseudo kind of what-if situation, I'll explain in a second, where over a 49-day period, the Helldivers, 1 million Helldivers, were capable of taking over 3 million planets and killing 3 trillion enemies. Those are numbers that are so far beyond anything that we've seen in Helldivers 2 up to this point, it kind of breaks the fucking game almost. So the question is, do I think that this is canonical? No, I don't. Basically, if you've never played Helldivers 1, the way it works is that the entire game is just the last little stretch of the war. You play through that last little stretch very much the same way you would play through Helldivers 2, but then once you get to the end of the war, you either win the war or you lose the war, and then it resets, and you play it over and over and over and over again. The stat I showed you is just one of many different stats of the many different times you've gone through this exact same playthrough over and over and over again. The developer over at Arrowhead has said that each one of these little scenarios is actually a simulation that was run by Super Earth to see the different ways that their military can go through this situation currently. So because it's a simulation, does that mean that we actually can't use this at all and all these numbers are completely worthless? No, because it's a simulation. It's not a video game, it's not fake, it didn't never happen. It is a real historical event that they put the modern Helldiver military through to see how they would be able to do it nowadays. So, question is, why does this matter? Because we can use these simulations to get as accurate of a reading as I think can be expected for how fast Super Earth can take over worlds and conquer them. We know based on these simulations that Super Earth is capable of conquering no less than tens of thousands of worlds and no more than 3.6 million over the course of 49 days. And it should be noted that at absolute maximum, these simulations only had 1 million Helldivers being used total. We've way dwarfed those numbers by now. I mean, we're about to throw 200 million Helldivers at Cyberstan alone. A single fucking battle on a single fucking planet. Not only that, but this is a number planet that Super Earth are capable of liberating while they're fighting a war against 3 other factions. Remember, Super Earth for the last 100 years was not fighting in a war and was spending that entire time spreading across the galaxy, taking over as many planets as they possibly can, completely unimpeded and with no obstacles in their way at all. The other 3 factions weren't there, and over the course of those 100 years, they never successfully took over the entire galaxy. Not because anything was stopping them, just because that's how long it was taking for them to do it. This gives us a really good idea of just how many planets are in the galaxy within the Helldivers universe, and how many planets Super Earth currently has. We're not talking about thousands or tens of thousands or even millions. We're talking about tens of millions to hundreds of millions of planets within this galaxy. be. The story literally doesn't make sense if it's less than that. I mean, just think about it for 5 seconds. Let's say I cut the number in half, right? Instead of the 58,000 planets conquered in 10 days, we'll change it to 20,000 over the course of 2 months. That is a 95% drop in world conquering speed. We know they had 100 years where there was no one in front of them to stop them from conquering worlds at all, and they were just spreading free for 100 years. So it should be a lot faster, but I'm making it way slower. If they did that for 100 years, just spreading across the entire galaxy, after 100 years, Super Earth would have 12 million worlds. Again, let me remind you, this is 5% of their actual planetary conquering speed based on their absolute worst performance ever in the simulation. If you just took their worst performance, it would be closer to 200 million planets over that 100-year period. And if you took their best performance, you're literally getting into the billions upon billions of worlds. Now, someone might argue, well, in the simulations, a lot of that was them taking over the same planets more than once because they were in a war. It's them taking over a planet, then having it taken back, then having to take it again. So it's not an accurate representation to say that that's the amount of planets they have. That's true, but I'm not arguing that that's the amount of planets they have. The only point I'm trying to make is the speed of which they can conquer planets. If they conquer the same planet multiple times in the same time period, that still shows the speed of which they can conquer. Now, if you put that in the 100 years scenario where there was no one to take planets back and they were free to just move about freely and just take over, you can take the speed of which they were conquering worlds during the war, increase it, and then put it for 100 years straight. There's no way to do that formula and not come up with bare minimum hundreds of millions of planets that they've been able to conquer. The only real argument against this is if you just want to deem Helldivers 1 as completely non-canon, and that literally none of these numbers mean anything, which has never at any point been stated by the developers. They have been pretty adamant by saying that these are simulations run to see how they can go about the war in different ways. They are different possible outcomes. They are not non-canon. And honestly, if you want to try and argue with me by saying that half of the fucking series you just don't feel like counting, you kind of already threw the fight, didn't you? You add on top of that the whole there's 260 planets in the entire galaxy for people to take over has now been officially proven as being bullshit. I've been arguing that it was bullshit for the longest time, but it was always a counter argument. It's no longer a counter argument. It's just straight up been debunked because they have literally added new planets to the map that weren't there before, which means not all the planets in the galaxy are on the map, obviously. I thought that was very clear, but people keep like super hard arguing me on that. Yeah, the magma planets weren't there at the start. They were added later. The Illuminates wiped out like fucking 8 planets, and you think that they're just gonna permanently have those planets be gone and they're not gonna replace them with new planets? Obviously they are. That is not the full number of planets. The automatons had a bunch of different magma planets that they were fully populated and doing shit on that we didn't know anything about because they weren't important yet. The actual number of planets that all of these factions have are not on the map. It's just a representation of what's important that we need to know as we're going to war with them. Now, some people might argue against this because there's this one chick on your ship that you could talk to, and in one of her voice lines, she said that when she was a girl, she thought that Super Earth had a lot of planets, but that we have taken over several dozen since then, and in just a couple generations, Super Earth will have control over the entire galaxy.
I thought we had a lot of planets when I was a kid, but we've settled dozens more since then. A few generations from now, and the entire Milky Way will be one united democracy.
And people have taken this quote to mean that the entirety of the Super Earth Empire has only taken over several dozen in the past like 10 years or so, depending on how old this bitch is. And I suppose that is a way of reading it, but I don't think that's a way of reading it that makes any sense whatsoever. I think the only way that you could possibly read her as saying that is if you are purposely trying to read it in the way that makes Super Earth as weak as humanly possible. It literally breaks the story if that's the case, because we've seen over the last year, we've taken over more than several dozen planets, and we have been fighting against a ton of opposition with a 3v1 galactic war. So it doesn't make any sense that Super Earth currently, in the last year, has been able to liberate and colonize several dozen worlds, but yet in the last 10 years prior to that, they've only done the same amount, but without having to war with people. Where's the sense in that? And I don't think that what she said here is an inconsistency on Arrowhead's part. I think that people are just choosing to interpret this shit wrong. She never at any point says that all of Super Earth has only conquered several dozen worlds. That's not what she said. The wording she used was we, not Super Earth. She's also talking about this in the context of when she was a girl, which we know based on lore that Super Earth recruits their soldiers at age 7, which means this chick was most likely recruited when she was a girl. That's the normal age for you to be recruited. She's in the military. It makes sense that she's been in there since she was 7. It is in no way a stretch to interpret what she's saying by we is that her on this ship that you are currently standing on has liberated several dozen worlds since she was a kid. Now, am I saying that the ship that you're standing on single-handedly went out and liberated several dozen worlds? No, it was probably a part of a larger fleet. But if she says, since I was a girl, we have liberated several dozen worlds, and we know in just the past year of the actual war that we've liberated several dozen worlds while fighting whole armies, why would you assume she means the entirety of Super Earth and not just what she has personally seen? That doesn't make any sense. We have seen in the war, we have been able to not only liberate, but also colonize whole worlds in a single day. They've been colonizing worlds for the last 100 years without any opposition. Why would you assume they're having an easier time of it now? So to summarize all this added information that we've got, right? We now know that the numbers that we have been seeing in Helldivers is not the full numbers that we possess, just the numbers that we've been deciding to use. We now know that the planets that we've been seeing are not all the planets that we are currently at war with at the time, just the ones that's relevant for us to know for the story. And we know in Helldivers 1 that the planets that we've been seeing have been ranging from us invading tens of thousands to literal millions every month. And we've been doing this for over 100 years. So taking all this into consideration, does this mean that Super Earth outnumbers the Imperium of Man, or the Imperium of Man will not outnumber Super Earth? No. But it does mean the numbers between these two factions are considerably closer than we otherwise would have assumed. The Illuminate invasion of Super Earth also introduced the idea of megacities, which in Super Earth, the megacity is a city that is so fucking massive with so many people in it that it can no longer be considered a normal city. It's on a totally different level of size compared to those cities. It is very clearly inspired by the megacities that exist in Judge Dredd. This is obvious by the naming scheme, as well as the fact that it was introduced at the same time the Force of Law war bond was introduced, which was also a Judge Dredd inspired war bond. It just doesn't make sense that they would very knowingly have a Judge Dredd inspired war bond at the same time they introduced megacities, which is a concept in Judge Dredd, and that not have any link between the two, like clearly. In Judge Dredd, the megacities have about 800 million people per city, and we know that Super Earth has bare minimum 7 of these cities on Super Earth, but also has many of them scattered across a bunch of different colony worlds. Is this 800 million an exact stat? No, we don't know the stat of the megacities. We just know that they're way bigger than normal cities. We haven't been given an exact stat, but given the very clear inspiration, it's way more likely that they're closer to the 800 million figure than they are from like the 10 million figure that a normal city would probably have. Obviously. Why would you have a completely different designation for megacities if it just has slightly more of a population than a normal city? It would just be a big city. No, it's a fucking mega city. It's gonna have a way bigger population. So what you're looking at here in terms of population when it comes to Super Earth and Imperium of Man, Imperium of Man has 1 million worlds, and many of those worlds are insanely well, all of those worlds pretty much are insanely populated. There are individual cities that we know have well over 1 billion people in individual cities on these worlds. There are quintillions estimated population of the Imperium of Man, and when you look over at Super Earth, they have bare minimum tens of millions of worlds. And yes, that is a massive lowball, and while the population of each one of these planets aren't anywhere near the population of the Imperium of Man's worlds, they still have planetary populations. We know this because the Illuminate were able to build an army of several 100 billion soldiers using the population of a half dozen Super Earth colony worlds, and we have seen that many of these colony worlds have their own megacities. These are not lightly populated planets. So whether you're talking about the Imperium of Man having 1 million worlds, each of which having hundreds of billions of people, or Super Earth having hundreds of millions of worlds, each having tens of billions of population, you're looking at comparable population. While I don't think these points are confirmation that Super Earth is a larger empire than the Imperium of Man, Man, I do think that it is a comfortable enough argument to say there's no point in bringing this up because they're close enough. We don't have exact numbers on either faction, but both are so unquantifiably big that what the fuck are we even doing arguing about it? Just assume both factions are relatively close in size and then get fucking started with the conversation. So getting past the whole numbers part of this video, what else could Super Earth do? Well, we now know that they are considerably stronger than normal humans. We already knew that once again, but it has now been confirmed because they literally introduced 500 kilogram weights. They're plutonium bars that you have to carry around during one of the missions. You're capable of chucking this thing like 60 feet. 500 kilograms, for those who are actually from a country, is 1,100 pounds, a little over a half a ton. No normal human should be able to toss this thing 60 feet. That's not possible. These are superhuman beings, and Helldivers are not the only characters that are superhuman, as Super Earth has genetically enhanced literally its entire population. Any average super citizen asshole can be pulled off the streets, join the Helldivers, and be capable of this exact same thing. There's no super soldier program that Helldivers go through. It's just that's how their population is. Many of their handheld weapons are not things that should be fired by normal humans. People love arguing me about this, but no, this is canon. The flak rounds of the autocannon in the coding of the game is stated to be 40 millimeters. Arrowhead purposely puts these in the coding for coders to find so they can get this little information. They've been doing this since the first Helldivers game, and in there it says the flak rounds are 40 millimeters. This is considerably larger than what a normal person should be able to fire, and it's larger than any bolter that exists that is a handheld bolter in Warhammer 40k. It's like double the size of the largest bolter rounds. It's fucking huge. Super Earth warships are consistently stated to be able to destroy small moons. No, I am not talking about the super destroyer being able to level a small moon. I am talking about the warship's ability to just straight up destroy a small moon, of which we have multiple statements of. A lot of people like to play stupid with this stat by saying, well, small moon is like, 3 kilometers because Phobos and shit, and there's really that is so dumb. I don't even want to justify it with a response, but I will because I like making people feel stupid. Our real world military today can destroy a 3-kilometer moon. We can destroy Phobos and all those tiny moons with ease today. Actually, we've been able to do it for about 60 years. Project Sundial, look it up, guys. Back in 1954, American scientists came together with the goal of being able to create a 10 gigaton warhead. While it's true this nuke was never created, they did come to the conclusion by the end of it that it's something that they absolutely could do if they wanted to. A 10 gigaton warhead is more than 200 times stronger than the Tsar bomb that went off in Russia. The Tsar bomb was so powerful it shook the entire planet. It was stated to be strong enough to be able to vaporize all of Mount Everest. A 10 gigaton warhead is theorized to have an explosion diameter of over 800 miles. That's enough to completely encompass the entire state of Texas. The moon's only a little over 2,000 miles wide, guys. We were pretty fucking close to blowing it up back then. The Helldivers timeline converges from ours around the 90s. That means in the Helldivers universe, that level of weapons technology has existed for 200 years. It is absolutely 100% dishonest to try and make the argument that because they say the word small moon, that you're going to assume the absolute smallest moon is all they can destroy and ignore all good sense that we today are capable of destroying that level of moons with ease. Obviously, the planet-destroying Super Earth is capable of doing that again with ease. It is not a stretch to say that they have weapons that can destroy moons and planets and things like this because they've done it already. They did it. Why are you guys pretending like they don't have weapons that can destroy regular-sized moons? They have so many examples of doing more impressive shit than that. Like, it's so dumb. Yes, Super Earth warships should not have any issues whatsoever destroying moons. Not fucking 3-kilometer moons, but normal-sized moons. It should not be that big of a deal because we've seen them do way more than that, and we could do it 40 fucking years ago. Like, are you guys high? Their absolute biggest weapon as of right now is the Star of Peace, which is a big-ass gun on a big-ass space station that shoots a literal dark matter laser at planets, collapsing it into itself and making it turn into a black hole. Their travel technology is also fucking instant. It's basically just teleportation. They have the ability to literally bend space and travel from one point to another instantly. Doesn't matter distance, doesn't matter where they're going, doesn't matter if they brought snacks. It takes the same amount of time for them to travel from one planet a system over to the other side of the galaxy. Same exact amount of time. They were literally just bending space and skipping the middle part and just going from point A to point B. Overall, Super Earth is an incredibly powerful faction, and the Imperium of Man has its work cut out for it. So, on to the Imperium of Man. I and 10,000 other guys online have talked about Warhammer to death, so this isn't going to be like a full breakdown of the faction, more so a comparison of what they have and how it stacks up to Helldivers. Got it? Okay. So what are the things that the Imperium of Man has that is just straight up better than Super Earth? Well, there's a lot here. For one, they are far more impressive on the ground combat. While I stand by my argument that the Imperium of Man is not going to completely dwarf Super Earth in numbers, as well as the argument that Super Earth has stronger handheld weapons, I would even say that Super Earth has quite a few advantages, like the fact that their entire military, and not only their military, but their entire population are all genetically enhanced super soldiers. Whereas when you look over at the Imperium of Man, the vast majority of their population and soldiers are all just regular people, and they have a better super soldier program, but it's way smaller than the super soldier program that fucking Super Earth's got going on. I 100% stand by all that. The fact of the matter is that when it comes to the heavy hitters of the field, Super Earth cannot compete with the Imperium of Man. Like, for instance, Super Earth has a tank. They just introduced a tank this last month. It's a very nice tank. Very pretty tank. Nothing wrong with it. Perfectly adequate tank. It's not a fucking Baneblade. A Baneblade is a bigger, more heavy duty, just generally more powerful tank than any tank that we've seen Super Earth have, right? Super Earth doesn't have Psychers. Super Earth has their own mechs, but those mechs aren't fucking dreadnoughts, right? They don't have Titans, which are mountain-sized fucking mechs. There's just very clearly a one-sided thing going on when you're talking about the on-land vehicles and like the heavy hitters of the field. There's a clear difference in power on the ground when you look at these two factions. And while I actually do think if you put all the ground troops on Super Earth against all the ground troops in the Imperium, Super Earth will win. Again, they do have better handheld weapons and they are physically superior on average. The Space Marines are cool, but they're nowhere near the numbers to make up the difference. The moment you introduce land vehicles into the mix, it's fucking over. Super Earth cannot compete here. Now, I do think there's a lot of exaggerations when it comes to the Warhammer community about just how much of this shit the Imperium actually has. If you talk to them, you would be under the impression that every single Imperium war zone is just covered with fucking Psychers and Titans and shit. That's not true. This stuff is incredibly rare. The Imperium absolutely despises using Psychers. They murder most of them because they don't trust them. It's very rare to actually run into a Psyker on a battlefield when you're going up against the Imperium. They have them, they do utilize them, but very rarely. And kind of the same situation with the Titan. While they don't have any problems with using them, that's a big fucking resource to be throwing at planets willy-nilly. In the 40k universe, you could fight in 1,000 battles with the Imperium and never come across a single Psyker or Titan. Now, does this mean that Super Earth is suddenly going to win these on-the-ground engagements? No, because the Imperium of Man's average land vehicles are still more powerful than Super Earth's land vehicles. But don't just think that you can solve all your fucking problems by chucking a Titan or a Psyker at it. That's not how it works. That's never been how it works. I don't know why you guys pretend like that is how it works. And now we arrive to the moment of the video where I'm gonna start losing the Warhammer fans if I haven't lost them already. Sadly for them, on-the-ground combat is the only area of military combat that they excel over Super Earth. And while being better on-the-ground combat is important and, you know, useful for a war effort, even in our modern real-world military, the Air Force and Navy are far more useful than the on-the-ground shit. The fact of the matter is that Super Earth has much faster ships, able to travel near instantly between point A and point B, whereas the Imperium of Man takes weeks and even months to travel a ship from one location to another. Super Earth has far more powerful guns on those ships. I know Warhammer fans can be rolling their eyes with that one, but they do. Repeat it with me. The Imperium of Man do not have the ability to destroy planets. It is a skill they do not possess. They do have certain weapons of mass destruction from the Dark Age of technology, like the Gravitational World Ender, which basically does the same thing that the Star of Peace does, although nowhere near as efficient. But unlike Super Earth, they have no way of upkeeping or repairing this thing if anything goes wrong. The one that they have is it. That's all they've got. They can't improve upon it, they can't upgrade it, they can't fix it, they can't do shit. So saying it's something they're capable of doing is very misleading, as Super Earth can just keep making more DSSs and as many big giant space lasers as they want. They can just keep destroying planets forever, while the Imperium has a couple of cool super weapons, but it's just inevitable that they're eventually going to get destroyed or broken, or just eventually wear and tear is going to get to them. They will not be able to compete with Super Earth in terms of their power output. And Exterminatus is not the destruction of a planet, it is the destruction of the surface of a planet. It is a far smaller level of power that they are releasing. They can do it with a virus bomb, which is chemical warfare, not physical, like, force, or they can do it by having a lot of ships show up and start all firing at the planet at the same time, which many of these ships are stated to have guns that have country cracking ability. But again, let me say, modern real world Earth has country cracking ability. Super Earth has moon destroying ability. Super Earth has a better communication system. You can see live broadcasts in your ship while you are setting up for missions, no matter where in the galaxy you are. This is incredibly impressive because communication systems travel at light speed, which means if you're on the opposite side of the galaxy and they send a transmission over to you, by the time it arrives to you, you will be dead. Your grandchildren will be dead. Your great-great-grandchildren will be dead, and likely the human race would be dead. That's how long it would take to get there. This is not an issue for Super Earth. Their communications are instant. This is the case for the Imperium of Man, who have a much, much slower communication system, and it's very common for them to just straight up not be able to communicate with other people if they're too far away from Imperium territory. The only way that Super Earth is going to lose this is if they decide to start going to planets that the Imperium is in control of, dropping a bunch of soldiers down on that planet, and decide to line their soldiers up on one side while Imperium lines the soldiers up on the other side, and then just rush towards each other. And honestly, even in that case, it's going to be a lot more difficult for the Imperium if they're the aggressors, because literally every single citizen of Super Earth is trained and armed, as every single man, woman, and child in Super Earth is required to be a part of the militia, and even 5-year-old children are given grenades so they could suicide bomb themselves in case they're invaded. So they're literally going to be fighting against the entire population of every planet they invade, something that Super Earth is not going to have to deal with when they invade the Imperium. If that's how they want to fight, then yeah, Super Earth loses. If they decide to fight with, any amount of intelligence at all, they would win. They would essentially be using like guerrilla pirate tactics, but they would win if they did that. All they would have to do is show up on planets, start bombing the shit that they can't fight on the ground, send Helldivers down to the ground, specifically strategically on locations that they need shit, because again, that's what Helldivers are. I think there's a confusion in people's heads who don't play Helldivers, thinking that Helldivers are just like soldiers that go down and just fight in wars. No, they're spec ops. They go down for specific strategic special operations missions. They don't fight openly on the battlefield, even though that's what the game does look like when you're playing it. They're gonna come in, they're gonna bomb the Titans, they're gonna bomb the major bases, they're gonna bomb all of the fucking anti-air technology that they have on the surface of the planet, anything that'll stop them from dropping pods down. They'll drop pods down, pods are gonna disrupt communications, they're gonna fuck up shit in the planet, and they're gonna leave. As we've seen in the Helldiver series, they are capable of doing this in under a day. They would then instantly travel to the next planet and do the same thing. The Imperium of Man has no hope at all of ever intercepting any of these ships, any hope of even getting communications in time to knowing it's happening while it's happening, and before they receive even the first mission that it did happen, get their ships together and travel to that planet to see what's going on, Super Earth has already taken over 10,000 other fucking planets in that amount of time. You're talking about literal months that process would take, which is not the case for Super Earth. And there is no evidence anywhere in 40K that the Imperium are capable of fending off a fleet of ships coming to their planets and just start dropping a bunch of moon-destroying fucking armaments on top of the surface. And even if they do have some planets that are capable of fighting back against that, Super Earth can just send the DSS in, it can just chill on the opposite side of the solar system, blast a fucking dark matter laser and turn the whole planet into a black hole, instantly annihilating it. What can the Imperium do? They can't travel fast enough to keep up. Anything the Imperium wants to do at any point during this entire war that would be going on would look like it's happening in fucking slow motion compared to Super Earth. Also, let's not forget that Super Earth is constantly updating its technology, constantly improving. They are currently improving the DSS so they can fire it more than once without needing to repair it. And they're trying to make a way of creating dark fluid more efficiently so they can utilize less fuel each time it needs fired. If you go over to the Imperium, they never improve their shit at all. There's one faction, the Adeptus Mechanicus, that actually does that. And the vast majority of their army just fucking ignores everything they have to say and doesn't want to use any of the shit that they build. The Adeptus Mechanicus is a very small percentage of the massive... Also, most of these factions fucking hate each other. If they weren't at war with other people, they would be war with themselves, which is not a problem for Super Earth. Super Earth is really on board with what's going on. There are no splinter factions trying to kill. There was one, there were the cyborgs, but they're fucking enemies now. Like, Super Earth is, they're good. You have shit like the Chaos Divers and stuff, but they never betrayed Super Earth. They were more like protesting. There are actual factions within the Imperium that go to war with other factions factions within the Imperium. In order to come to the conclusion that the Imperium win this, you would have to ignore the fact that they're warring with each other, ignore their communication speeds, ignore their travel speeds, ignore the fact that their most powerful weapons of mass destruction do not compare to Super Earths, ignore all the evidence in Helldivers that they have bare minimum tens of millions of worlds compared to the 1 million worlds the Imperium has. I mean, fuck, dude. How? Give me an argument. What? Oh, well, what about chaos magic and the fucking chaos? Chaos Marines aren't a part of the Imperium. They betrayed them. That's a fucking cheat. I've seen that argument many times. It's a dumb argument. The Chaos Marines are hunted by the Imperium. They are not a part of them because they used to be. They are a traitorous faction, not counted. Oh, but the Emperor of Man can destroy the universe. Show me a universe he destroyed. Show me a planet he destroyed. Show me literally anything that he's destroyed. I've had people tell me that he destroyed 250,000 worlds. Can't find it. I can't find it anywhere. All the shit on Versus Battle Wiki about universe destruction, all this shit, it's all fucking bullshit. It's not located anywhere in any novels anywhere. If you actually click on their links to try and see where it is, it's all blank links. There's nothing, there's no evidence actually linked to any of this shit. And there are just as many fans of Warhammer 40k, the sensible ones, that have no fucking idea where they got that information, and it's just like, yeah, no, we don't know. We don't know anything about the Emperor. We don't know his power level. There are people who are still arguing whether or not this dude could even destroy a planet, and you have people saying as if it's factual that this dude is destroying entire fucking universes, when the entire universe of 40k is one galaxy. It's not even a full universe. I don't understand why you guys do this. DMC does this too. Oh, he's a fucking multiversal being when the whole universe of DMC is just one universe that has a barrier in between it. It's not two universes. It's the same thing here. This is a galaxy. Why are y'all arguing they could destroy an entire universe when the whole, like, what? Even if they destroyed all of existence within 40k, it would still just be one galaxy, because that's all we get. What about the Imperium's void shields and all their other kind of crazy shield technology? Super Earth doesn't even have shields. First off, that's not going to make that big of a difference, because the vast majority of the shielding systems that the Imperium have will be destroyed by Super Earth armaments. But even disregarding that, just pretending that that's not the case, Super Earth already has warp technology. They are already capable of safely teleporting a man from one location to another using a warp pack the size of a backpack. How long do you think it's going to take them to figure out that they can do that with hell bombs and just drop them directly on enemy ships, completely bypassing shielding systems? Like 2 months? A year? At the rate that Super Earth improves their technology, the Imperium isn't just going to have to win against Super Earth, they're going to have to win fast. In the time it would take them to travel from one point to another, 3 or 4 months, Super Earth's going to evolve like 50 years technologically. All the while, the Imperium remaining completely stagnant. But what about the Psyker's ability to reach out with like mental feelers to try and locate people across the galaxy? They can locate anyone all across the galaxy. They can locate Super Earth leaders and different ships, and they can know what's happening beforehand. Yeah, that's true, but Super Earth can do the same thing. They don't do it psychically, but they have these massive scanners that can scan across the entire galaxy, so they know where planets are, where ships are, what's going on, what planets are under attack. All of that information is fed to them at all times. And unlike the Imperium, they can actually do something with that information. If a Psyker reaches out and sees where a leader of Super Earth is, like, okay, we're gonna go and attack this leader, well, it's gonna take us fucking 3 months to get there, and by the time we get there, he's not there anymore. Like, what does it matter? The Imperium also has really great spy networks. What's gonna happen if they send a bunch of spies to go and spy on Super Earth? Nothing. What's the spies gonna do? They're gonna be behind enemy lines and be like, okay, I'm gonna secretly send this message out to the leaders and be like, oh, this is the plan, Super Earth's gonna go and they're gonna enact it. They're gonna be like, oh, cool, Super Earth's leaving right now to go and attack this planet. All right, let's go fucking intercept and stop that. Oh, it's gonna take us 6 months to get there, and oh shit, they're already there. Okay, well, we're fucked. You seeing a pattern here? In war, the speed that you can create plans, enact plans, and communicate with your forces is just about the most important part of it. And the Imperium just straight up can't compete. And look, I understand that I'm not doing this massive deep dive of Warhammer, going into every single ship and every single gun and all of the crazy shit they have, because they do have some very impressive, very crazy, oftentimes magical shit, but it doesn't matter, because you would have to be able to utilize that weapon or bullshit power in a way that Super Earth can't circumvent, completely avoid, or preemptively strike, which is incredibly unlikely because they can scan across the entire galaxy, and anything they want to do, they can do it instantly. Let's say the Imperium Man builds the biggest biggest force you've ever seen in the Imperium. It's this massive, all-powerful, great force. They come together. There's literally quadrillions of fucking people in this force. There are massive star-destroying weapons and all kinds of other crazy shit, and they all show up in Super Earth. They just teleport directly to Super Earth, bypassing all of the many Super Earth defenses that were specifically put in place for the sole purpose to fight against alien species who can teleport through space. What's stopping them from showing up there and Super Earth just not being there anymore because they just fled the planet and bailed on it, and now it's just a barren rock and you just wasted all your fucking time and effort? And then Super Earth decided to go behind you at all the places that you bailed to move those forces here and just decided to fuck like 12 of your goddamn planets behind your back while you're sitting there looking at a barren rock that they purposely abandoned just to screw with you? What's stopping them from doing that? This is what the entire war is going to look like. And yes, I know the Imperium does have some people who can see into the future, but that future sight doesn't happen that often, and when it does, oftentimes it's not true. The visions they see are false or from a different timeline, or there's changes in what happened. They can't rely on those visions. And again, even if they could see what was going to happen before it happened, it wouldn't matter because their travel speed is too slow to keep up with these shifting changes in what Super Earth wants to do as the timeline keeps getting altered, and their communications aren't fast enough to warn people in order to actually utilize that future sight. There's really not much they can do. So to try and quickly summarize this video, can Super Earth survive the Imperium of Man? Yeah, they can survive and they can win, because they win in basically every category except for ground troops, and wars aren't waged with ground troops. They're waged with the Air Force and the Navy. In this case, they would be waged with space combat, of which they are faster, have better communications, evolve their technology much faster, better weapons of mass destruction, comparable numbers, and comparable weapons on those ships. As the Imperium is confirmed to have country-busting weapons, and we in the real world have country-busting weapons, and Super Earth has been far surpassed us and has been able to destroy moons. That is their basic cannons on their basic warships. Months and months and months and months ago, I had a debate on a stream with another guy, well, a group of guys, where I supported Super Earth and they supported the Imperium of Man, and we debated on which one would win. I argued that it was a lot closer than people think, and the travel speed of the ships was a significant advantage that I didn't think the Imperium can reasonably deal with. But something else I said that I think is very relevant here is that even if the Imperium could defeat Super Earth now, as the, at the time that I did that debate, that's only temporary because Super Earth constantly adapts and improves and gets better and better and better. Not only in the lore, but in real time as we see the developers release more and more and more shit. They couldn't open up black holes before, now they can, and now they can do them casually, and they're going to improve doing it. And this is all kind of a part of their whole thing. They constantly get better. The fact that the Imperium doesn't get better in both lore as well as in the actual series, they don't improve. They add more stuff, but nothing that's like a massive technological advancement. And Super Earth and Arrowhead does constantly. It was just a matter of time before Super Earth surpassed the Imperium. We just had to wait a year or two to have it happen. We are now at that point. They have surpassed the Imperium. There is no fight to be had anymore. You would have to disregard so many things about Super Earth and exaggerate so many things about the Imperium in order to try and make this win. And even then, it would still be fucking close. Super Earth wins this, conquering tens of thousands of worlds every couple of months, not even leaving the Imperium enough time to actually figure out what the fuck is going on with their shitty communication systems and travel speeds. And it will absolutely 100% eventually end with Super Earth dominating the Imperium of Man. But that's going to be all for me. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, join the membership, and hype the video. All these things help the video and help the algorithm bring this video to more people so that they can enjoy it just like you enjoyed it or didn't enjoy it. On the screen right now, unless YouTube has the TARs, there should be 4 different videos. Click on one of those if you want to enjoy more shit like this, but not quite. It's kind of similar. It's in the same ballpark. And always remember, y'all stay safe out there, you hear?